So, good evening, everyone. We've been having a little chat. Some of you know who I am. For some of you, we will need to say, I'm Janice Dempsey. My husband, Donald Dempsey, will come and go on that part of the screen because
Flickers.
he flickers a lot when he's in front of one of these digital screens. So he's kindly offered to stay out of it and just make me tea. So I'm thinking it's a good evening for a Zoom launch, most parts of the country being underwater and all of it very cold. So it's wonderful to see so many people having turned out in from the comfort of their living room to the Zoom screen. So we're looking forward to an hour or so of fine poetry from Judith Wozniak and her 5 guest poets. And thank you all for joining us. So, making Dolmades inEssesx, and there's the front cover. It's Judith's first full poetry collection, and it coincided with a pamphlet published by Hedgehog Press based on her experiences as a physician. This is a longer book, and in making Dolmades inEssesx, she recalls her family's origins in the coal mining valleys of childhood, Wales, and the family's resettlement in Essex. She takes the reader back to the days of childhood, adolescence, and young adulthood. We share some poignant memories and others that are irrepressibly optimistic and affectionate, in poems that are by turns intimate, wry, humorous, and coolly meditative. The collection's already had appreciative reviews. Diana Cant, who's here now, recently wrote online in London Grip, Judith Wozniak has the ability to remember in extraordinary detail, but as a poet, it's not enough to observe and recall. You have to be able to put it into words, and they have to be the right words. And in her review, she goes on to elaborate on just how well Judith does that. Who knew that the past could be so exciting? Here it all is, with all its life and wonder and joys and tragedies. Open these pages and step on in, said the poet and editor Jonathan Edwards in another review. Rebecca Goss, poet, educator, and editor, wrote, Judith Wozniak's Making Dolmades inEssesx brims with moving recollection, beautifully gathered. A woman shares the encounters that have shaped her, and the result is warm, insightful, and lasting. And in Literal magazine, Neil Leadbeater said, these life-affirming poems, with their attention to detail, capture the mood of the moment. Full of wisdom and insight, they remind us in equal measure of all that we have lost and gained in our journey through life. Highly recommended. So we're very pleased to welcome Diana Cant and 4 other fellow poets, to share their own poetry this evening as guest readers. We'll be starting with a reading by Judith from Making Dolmades, then Diana, Erica Jane Morris, and Mary Mulholland will read. After that, Judith will read a second set from her book, and then introduce Alexandra, Corrin Tachibana, and Roger Boor, both of whom I've seen are here, I'm pleased to say. Judith will read a last poem as a finale. So welcome everybody, and over to Judith.
Well, thank you so much for coming. It's so lovely to see you all. And in case I forget, thank you to Janice and Donald for publishing this book, and to Janice for designing the cover, which I think is spectacular, actually. The best bit, I think. So I was brought up in Essex with a very small family, just my mother and I, and a cousin in Wales. So I've always been fascinated by other people's families. So I'll start with the poem, Other People's Families. My den smells of damp coconut matting, an old sheet slung over the washing line, snagged on brambles, where our garden has run wild. I coax the ginger cat with saucers of milk and read him Amelia Ann and the Green Umbrella, mix potions with sorrel and lavender, or lie on the prickly grass watching ants carry crumbs from a stolen biscuit. Our new next-door neighbours have a dad. I peek at them through a spy hole in the fence. Conker-haired children, freckled with gold dust, play that game I like best, walking on his shiny shoes in their socks. Their mum brings out rock cake she's baked for elevenses. Beakers of milk they gulp down, leaving white moustaches. Yesterday, the big girl with a lucky gap in her teeth left me a flying saucer balanced on the fence. It fizzed my nose. I make her a daisy chain necklace, threading stalks through thumbnail crescents. She wants me to squeeze through the loose slat to see her shack. I worry I'll snag my best cardigan, poppy red with ladybird buttons, and make my mother more sad. So my mum had a sort of series of odd job men, some of whom I had to see off, but I didn't mind Mr. King. Coo Martin, 1957. Mr. King, the odd job man, persuaded Mum to try a respectable boarding house he knew would suit our family of two. I like Mr. King, his strange walk, tipping over to one side, swinging his gammy leg from the wall without his cap falling off. He drove a mushroom soup-coloured car with orange finger indicators that flicked out when he turned the corner at the top of our street. My new red jumping Jody sandals, crepe soles pale as sponge cake, had to stay in the box until the morning of our holiday. The boarding house had a castle cut-out roof. We explored, wrapped in pacamacs and plastic concertina rain bonnets, until we were allowed in. Our room was at the back, overlooking the bins. Mum slid her compact between the sheets to check for damp, powdered her face in the fogged mirror. The dining room was quiet as chapel. Paper napkins folded in triangles, brown sauce and tomato ketchup, toothpicks and the salt and pepper damp from sea air. Most tea times we had bread and butter pudding. When the landlady left the room, the noisy dad jumped up, punched the air. Blimey O'Reilly, a raisin. Lying awake in our twin beds, sadness seeped across the gap. Mum whispered in the dark, let's go home. And the next door neighbours had a Greek mum, hence the Dolmades. So this is making Dolmades in Essex. In summer, when they make Dolmades, I wriggle through the gap in our fence. Alice, Michael and Paul shiggle along the bench to make room for me. We scoop teaspoons of rice flecked with spices on the underside of vine leaves, the size of a lady's hand, roll them into tight cigar-shaped parcels. Their mum chivies us along, Ella, Ella, brings us lemonade with a stripy straw, watermelon slices cut into smiles. I swallow the black seeds like Alice and her brothers. My mother would like me to have curls like Alice, twists my hair in pin curl clips, fixes it with Kirby grips, wraps fine strands in rags torn from old sheets. Since they came, my mother laughs more, like she used to before it was just us two. You can see that nothing worked. Poor Mum, very disappointing. The other thing that I really liked about it was going back to Wales when my mother and father were born, and we used to go and stay in the holidays in the village she was born in, Kenfig Hill. There's often a picture, it's quite ubiquitous in Wales, of a chapel with a scary old lady in a Welsh hat and shawl. So this is Capel Salem. They whisper Welsh in the scullery. Alone in the best room, I kick the oak chair leg in time with the grandfather clock and try not to look at the picture over the red brick hearth. An old woman with a tall hat stares out from a creased face. Liz the farm says the devil is hidden in the folds of her paisley shawl. She dares me to look. Instead, I fix my gaze on the tiny ebony frame propped on the mantel shelf. Real butterfly wings flicker silver blue in the light of the 3-bar electric fire. Sometimes a word escapes I can understand, television or Patagonia. When my mother says, "There you are then," I know they've finished and caught up with the news. I'm allowed in the pantry to fetch the milk jug with a beaded mop cap. There's a side of ham wrapped in muslin, a pat of butter from the farm patterned with wavy lines. Cold seeps through my socks from the freshly mopped flagstone floor. I wonder why we don't have a scullery or a pantry in Essex. Scurry back to the cwtch by the fire and steal a glance at the crease of the old lady's elbow. The devil's eye is watching me. So my mum, she was quite wily as well as a very quiet lady and dignified, but she was quite wily, and this is called Tactical Voting. I'll take you back to some recent episodes here. Tactical voting. My mother is ready for them when they knock, darts me a laser look that means keep quiet. A man in a pinstriped suit raises his hat, smiles down at us, flashing a gold tooth. I hope I can count on your support, madam. Mum puts on her special telephone voice. Explains she's recently widowed, all alone with a child. She's not sure how she will manage to vote. Dabs her eyes with a lace handkerchief tucked in her watch strap. We were offered a lift in the campaign car with a loud hailer on the roof. The man stamps his shiny shoes to keep warm while she collects her coat from upstairs, dithers with her hat in the hallstand mirror, fusses over my buttons, adjusts my Alice band bonnet, threads mittens on a string through my sleeve. We slide along the slippery leather bench seat at the back of the car. It's already getting dark. At the polling station, she takes her time inside the wobbly wooden booth with tiny pencils on strings. Later, she tells my father how she hoodwinked them. She often talks to his photo on the mantel shelf. Those of you of a certain age may remember Sunday night at the London Palladium, which I was allowed to stay up and watch if it wasn't a school day the next day. And obviously, it was all in black and white. But for a treat around my birthday, we went to see the London Palladium. Matinee at the London Palladium, 1961. We sit right at the top in tip-up velvet seats. I'm allowed to release the tiny opera glasses with a sixpence. There's a sudden hush. The lights go down, and it's him, Liberace, in colour, playing a crystal-encrusted piano, a candelabra balanced on the top. His silver costume a dazzle of diamante. He stops and comes to the edge of the stage. I hear little whispers about my jacket. I'm so glad you like it. Everyone laughs. I slide down in my seat and sit very still in case he means me. In the interval, for a treat, raspberry ripple ice cream in a wax tub with a miniature plastic shovel. Afterwards, he's back in a glittery gold suit. He says, "Some people call me Liberace, some Liberace, and some newspapers call me other things." Everyone claps and cheers. Too soon it's the end. Everyone joins in with, "I'll be seeing you," even Mum until I give her a look. Afterwards, we have toasted tea cakes at Lion's Corner House. I asked Mum why people were laughing. She says, "I'll tell you when you're older." Testing. I'd set my heart on a red bike. I don't mind its crimson tears of dribbled paint or the creaky wicker basket. I wear down my mother until I'm allowed to ride to school once I pass the cycling proficiency test. She gets up early to set out lumps of coal in a wiggly line on the pavement for me to practice weaving between them without falling off. We plan a safe route down Thomaswood Hill using my brakes, through side roads. I promise not to turn right, but to get off and cross, not to talk to strange men, not to stand up on the pedals like Michael at number 14. She waves me off in plenty of time for morning register, a bottle of Lucozade tucked in my basket. I'd hoped she'd say no, so we could travel on the bus together, and I could cheer her up with my Harry Worth impression in the plate glass window of the corner shop. So, Michael from next door and I had piano lessons together, and although it was Ilford, I think this teacher had ideas above her station. Beats. We ask why we have to call her Madam Maud. Our mother's chorus don't answer back. On Saturday evenings, I grizzle and sob over my music. My mother wears her tight-lipped I told you so face. Sunday mornings, and I'm on the bus with Michael from next door, who's 4 months and 5 days older. I wait on the stool in the hall while Michael has his lesson, wishing as the clock ticks I had practiced more. Heavy velvet curtains let in a crack of daylight, the piano draped in a crimson cloth with silky tassels. Madam wears a chiffon turban and a jangle of bracelets. Her bared teeth flash a smear of red lipstick. She hovers over me, tapping out the beat with her ruler in time with the metronome, with the occasional swipe across my knuckles. Hold your fingers up high, my dear, as if they are galloping horses. There's Rossi's ice cream parlour to look forward to on our way home. We get off the bus early at Barkingside to pay for an extra scoop in our lime soda, our long spoons reaching the syrup at the bottom. Michael promises I can try on his Davy Crockett hat, holds the frosted glass against my tender hand. So I'm still there in my teens with the same people next door, and these are the neighbours on the other side, the boy Trevor. I watch our neighbours from my bedroom. Trevor kicks his football against the wall, thud, thud, until his mum raps on the window, clattering her rings against the glass. His dad mows the grass up and down in stripes. The mum appears with a basket of washing, pegs fanned between her teeth, hair hidden under a chiffon scarf, one roller peeping out, under the knot at the front. Trevor shows off if he knows I'm looking, doing his Charlie Chaplin impression, twirling a garden cane he's pinched from the wigwam holding up their runner beans, or cartwheels across the grass so his shorts slip down enough to flash the pale hull of his hips. I'm revising, listening to Downtown on a loop. When it's dark, he'll climb the apple tree at the bottom of the garden, call out, cuckoo, cuckoo, until I turn on my light. And the last one of this set is, when I left home, my mum moved back to Kentford Hill, and I had a summer job in Forgoni's ice cream parlour. My summer job in Forgoni's ice cream parlour. Our sandals skid on harbour cobbles, slicked with spume. We run helter-skelter for the last bus, scramble upstairs, shaking the vanilla ice cream smell from our hair. The bus hugs the coast, lurches through lanes, scuffing gorse, wheezing to a stop for the Hall Farm girls to tumble out. I wave as they vanish up the track to home. My reflection keeps me company, leaning into the dark glass until the end of our lane. Mum's light is still on upstairs. The sticky nylon overall sparks as I peel it off for a Daz soak. I perch on her bed and tell her stories about my day, how old Tommaso's boots leave the ground as he pivots over churns of ice cream to reach the bottom with his scoop, how he whistles a signal through his fingers if he sees Louis's van, so the boss finds us busy topping up orange squash, filling squeezy bottles with raspberry sauce to squirt on banana splits and Knickerbocker glories. I listen to the drip, drip, drip of my overalls hanging over the bath and think about flighty Tony, his red MG midget, the aviator sunglasses. I don't tell Mum how our fingers touch when I hand him his change. Okay, thanks. So, You're in for a treat now. It's my great pleasure to introduce some talented friends I met on the MA course in writing poetry at the Poetry School at Newcastle University. I couldn't have done it without them. My first three readers, first Diana Cant has published 2 pamphlets, Student Bodies and At Risk, with VOLE Books, the lives some children live. She was a Forward Prize nominee in 2023 and won the Plaza Poetry Prize in 2023. She is a joint editor of The Alchemy Spoon. Her recent collection, I Make You Bird, was recently published by Broken Sleep Books. It's an extremely moving collection, which I highly recommend. Second, it's Erica Jane Morris. I've known Erica since my first course at the Poetry School. Her poems have been shortlisted for the Martine Crawford Poetry Award 2024, highly commended in the Artemisia Arts International Poetry Competition 2024, and the Plough Poetry Prize 2022, and she was a finalist in the Dyslexia Poetry Competition 2021. And finally, Mary's poems are widely published, like everybody's on this erudite list. She has been placed and listed in many competitions, most recently commended in Winchester. She occasionally looks after her son's sheep, and her pamphlet, What the Sheep Taught Me, was published by Live Canon and is great, wonderful. She's an editor of The Alchemy Spoon and founded the poetry platform Red Door Poets. All of these people had so many lists of things that have been published. I wouldn't have had time to say them all, but they're all been published in many magazines and anthologies. So start off with Diana. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Judith. And it's an absolute pleasure to be here this evening and listen to these wonderful poems because they're so evocative and so moving. I've tried to follow on a little by doing something similar and I'll read 3 poems, which are again, they follow a time scale. One's about birth, the second's about adolescence, and the third takes a rather large leap into grandmotherhood. But interestingly, actually, when I came to realize this, my unconscious was obviously at work and grandmothers figure in all of them. So there we go. So I'll start with rocking. You'd better come and meet them, said my dad, and so I did. Little choice at 4 years old. A gravel drive, broad sandstone steps, the entrance to the building strange and overwhelming. I may have taken presents, but my memory is freeze frame, no panning shots. Desperate to see my mother, her place taken by grandmother come to stay, whose rules must be obeyed. So frightened that I'd wet myself, hidden my shorts beneath my bed. I climbed those steps, eager, excited, but sensing change. I don't remember what I wore. Perhaps the small grey shorts dried miraculously overnight. It started well enough. My dad opened double doors, a huge hallway, tiled black and white, a dappled rocking horse, red velvet saddle waiting to be filled. I do remember what I saw. In my mother's arms, 2 tiny heads, her gaze on them, not me. I fled to the safety of the scarlet saddle, the rocking of a comfort that I didn't have to share. This is my grandmother, from whom I learned the word marquisite. She always wears it, a maroon beret, moored on iron grey curls, anchored by a marquisite hat pin, a stab at killer elegance, lest we forget she came from better things. We children sense her disappointment, her vexed confinement in a small apartment crammed with Art Deco figurines, tapestries, a silver tea set, trappings of a former life. Upright, imperious, she doesn't like us much, never really liked our father, except she'd finally born a son. She slices through our teenage giggles with her gimlet stare. We wear best clothes to visit, quietly waiting for Earl Grey tea served in proper cups with saucers, with evaporated milk. But and how much this matters. She makes almond shortbread to die for, always bakes it when we come. If we're good, we get a second piece, a tasty bait that can sometimes seem like love. Today, though, she's energized, her eyes are shining. "This nice young man took me to tea," she announces proudly, "and we had macaroons. He took me down to Weymouth and we watched the tide come in." We're struggling here. She's been housebound all year, but now she looks so well. A polite young man, such charming conversation. Clearly he's found favour, better behaved than us. She beams with pleasure, her eyes are softer, her beret slightly askew. "He promised to come again next week, but I don't know who he is." Today there's no almond shortbread, just the fading fantasy of macaroons. Months later, in her will, the unexpected gift of a Marquisite hat pin. And finally, "In which I wake you from your sleep in a drawer." You've come to stay, all 6 months of you, smelling of skin and milk and biscuit. And your parents have left you, having important things to do, left you in my anxious care. They've left you sleeping in a wooden drawer. There were extenuating circumstances, and babies have slept in drawers for centuries, and besides, you fit so well. I have instructions to wake you if you sleep too long, change you, feed you. But what is too long, and how am I to judge? 2 hours and your time is up, time to haul you back to shore. I creep in. You're nonchalant in your sleep, one arm draped casually over the drawer's edge. I hesitate. You don't know me well, and I've never woken you before. You may panic, cry as if your world is ending, and how would we row back from there? I kneel, quietly call your name. Surfacing, your eyes swim me into focus, a pause, a look of puzzlement. Then your whole body becomes a smile, face, arms, legs, and we are beaming, and the beam becomes a laugh, and the laugh becomes a song until we're singing, timeless, unwavering, and I know again what it means to fall in love. Thank you.
It was beautiful. Is Erica here?
I'm here.
Oh, good. There you are.
Can you hear me okay? Brilliant. I'm going to read 2 poems. Further failings. I failed at cartwheels, backwards, head over heels. I failed to see the amoeba, killed a water flea with petroleum jelly. I failed to read inside my head. The lead in my pencil slid out. My ant farm flooded. I failed to save money, backpack around Peru. I failed to be absorbed by Austin. I failed to light a firelighter, was asked to leave the choir. I refused to stand up and sit down. I missed the last train, forgot to post my Christmas cards. I failed at mountain pose, dead dog. I forgot to be mindful, failed at nasal breathing. I lost myself in the Brecon Beacons. I dropped out of ballet, failed to learn the acoustic guitar. My laugh was too loud. I failed at tripping. He wrote his number on a £10 note. I spent it. I broke the handle on a pasta machine. I failed to find the inner peace. The zip stuck on my onesie. I woke up in a breakout room. I planted thistles. I've never had a PB. Positive splits made me sick. I burnt the scallops. My bag for life perished. I failed to delegate, circulate, tone my midriff. I crocheted treble, not half treble, double treble. I unravelled. My sourdough starter grew mould. I failed to give up my seat. I failed at grieving. My hair went green. I never found my double. I failed to tap my oyster and retweet. I failed at stitching, patchwork bunting. I didn't trim the wick. My lipstick melted. I shrunk my wedding dress. I failed to sleep. Now one with a slightly different tone. Some Sundays. Dark tan, chestnut, ox blood. I nudge a latch on the side of a tin. There's rust on the rim, but the stubborn lid lifts. Pitted earth like clay, cracked crater, the smell of oil. We are crouching by the colour gas heater, bite of Hessian on my knees. My father sweeps back his dark hair and shows me a rhythm. Brush off the dirt and grass, heels and toes. I pull out laces. He passes a tear of green sheet, wraps cloth around my forefinger and middle finger, a nub of polish. No, no, not much, he says. I smudge over scuffs, grazing, stamping. Here, here, and I give him my brown shoe. He turns and buffs, like this, like that, he says, hands down, a black bristled brush. I'm brushing, turning. Look, I say. He is not there. Away in clouds, hills, mountains, Peru, Kashmir, Madagascar. I pick and pull threads on the back edge of my shoe, try to rub the stain off my finger. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
That was amazing, Erica. And Judith, I'm thoroughly enjoying your launch. Congratulations, and it's a privilege to be reading here. My first, which I know Judith likes, features my mother, who was born and grew up in Guyana. It's called The Art of Daydreaming. My mother gazes beyond the garden, a capuchin in the rhododendron. She hears tree frogs in the ticking of the grandfather clock. My mother has sugarcane blood. She's made of mango. She's pineapple, dresses in laughter, passes darkness to her big-boned daughter to wear. Sometimes my beautiful mother sings as she peels potatoes. Her voice is alto. When she tries soprano, she's a spider monkey. My beautiful mother's rings are loose on her fingers. She believes rubies and gold will bring her good luck. She likes to lose herself in dreams. And had I not gone to that Almodovar film that I didn't enjoy, I'd have answered her call, not heard her voice later, too late to return, naming me in her sing-song way, as if saying goodbye. Sometimes we just get it wrong. That night, I was too big-boned dumb. By next morning, my beautiful mother is wading back to childhood, ankle deep in warm rain. My mother is an Amazonian water lily, afloat on dark water. Her petals unfurl like paper decoration. She doesn't see the caiman's amber eyes waiting, a green anaconda dangling from a branch, the harpy eagle that'll soar her to the canopy's green mantle. My mother doesn't like green. Her breathing is the ocean. She is rushing in to pause on the Demerara silt shore, then rushing out to rejoin the horizon. Her waves are thrashing the seawall. She's wearing foam lace, ribboning the air with clouds that shapeshift, are turning electric blue. My butterfly mother is sky. And so the next one speaks for itself. It's called Cake. There's a whistle from my father-in-law's nostrils as he enters the kitchen. There, he says, and takes a paperback from his jacket. He always carries a book in his pocket. He hovers beside me, inspecting my cooking. I say I'm making his cake to take home, our monthly ritual. He nods, never says which he likes best. Today is Victoria's sponge. There, he says, and sits down, resting his book on the table. He stretches his legs with another. There. He's a stick insect, gangly and thin. Soon we'll have lunch. And again he'll reminisce prep school stories, war tales, the plot of his latest thriller. He will talk and I will nod, and it's not dementia, just a play I've heard too often. But someone had to take on this role, now he's alone, and his own son's always busy when his father comes to stay. At last, he'll drive home with his cake. Weeks later, he's in hospital asking to see me. There you are, I say when I find him, and his smile creases his grey face. There, he says, and reaches to his bedside table, presses his paperback into my hand, the corner of page 70 turned down. You read it now. After he dies, my husband starts clearing his father's house. We had no connection, he shrugs as he bins diaries, photos, letters. I hesitate, his book in my pocket. Then find in his freezer all the cakes I ever made him, lemon drizzle, Dundee, Victoria's sponge. There, I say, and chuck the lot in the skip. And finally, I don't know if any of you know, but Abbotsbury in Dorset has the world's only swannery of mute swans. It was set up in the 11th century as part of the Benedictine monastery who farm swans. The monastery's gone, no one eats swans anymore, but about 600 of them live there. That's swans, not monks. Anna Pavlova took her ballet company to study them in preparation for Swan Lake. So it's called The Day I Met Anna Pavlova. Anna took her ballet troupe to Abbotsbury to learn how a swan curves its neck, beats wings, arches its torso to the sky. To an echo of oboes, string tremolos, and harp arpeggios, she trembled her en pointe feet, rippled her arms until her wings folded, and Anna, Odette, Odile circled, dying. You and I at the swannery are ankle deep in feathers, like precoital pillow passion. Though we're at the stage where love has left the play, yet we keep going. Toss crumbs from a bucket, smile for photos, mute as the white bank, resisting the song in Swan. Don't see the boatman coming for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. All three of you, thank you so much. They were wonderful poems, all of them. And now we're going to go back to Judith. Judith, have you got some more poems to read us?
Yes, weren't they wonderful, wonderful readings. Right, so now I'm a medical student and I'm living in a flat in Aldgate East with Marilyn, who's here tonight, and it wasn't a very salubrious area then. And we went back recently, and absolutely unrecognisable. I couldn't find where we used to live. Gone, it's gone. After the party. This was our joint 21st. After the party. There might be enough grant money between us to share a Savoy from the White Hart, its tight tan skin bursting with juices. We torture ourselves with food we want to eat. Bagels at the all-night kiosk in Brick Lane, crisp potato latkes from Whitechapel Market, wrapped in a collar of greaseproof paper, a twist of pastries from the Kossoff stall, still warm, crusted with cinnamon sugar. In the debris, twiglet fragments, cheese footballs, toppled bottles of Hirondelle, Blue Nun, runnels of wax peeled from a Mathieu's rosé bottle. There's no milk in the fridge, only forlorn remains, a curried egg, 2 soggy vol au-vents, the grapefruit hedgehog stripped of his cocktail stick spines. Behind piles of books, balanced on light fittings, lined along the picture rail, gulab jamun made by Roy's mum, discarded after 1 bite. All we have is a saffron yellow comfort of Mrs. Roy Chowdhury's leftover sweetmeats. And I'm suddenly homesick for a roast, thick Welsh gravy, carrots from Cousin Terry's allotment. I miss my mother hovering in her pinny with a salvo of questions. Outrageously, we got married halfway through our training, and this is about Ted's landlady. She nurtured her students and liked you, a good Catholic boy. Her teeth whistled when she talked through one side of her mouth as though leaking a secret. Her first trip outside Plaistow was to our wedding in Porthcawl. She sent for her costume, crushed strawberry with a toque to match, from the Littlewoods catalogue, paid for in weekly instalments. Our friends dressed in the fashions of the day, thigh-skimming minis, maxis, cloche hats and knee-length boots in August. I wanted a white car, but it's Esaias, funeral directors and purveyors of limousines in Kenfig Hill, only had the 1 black one. We stowed her flat-warming gifts in a special box in case she came to call. The plaster Madonna with flaking arms, a chipped halo, and a picture of Jesus to keep us safe. Mrs. Willis bequeathed us the double bed her husband died in, and her sticky bread pudding recipe. The Monsignor called you Patrick throughout the ceremony. She worried it might not count. Sorry, kids. We then moved back to Essex, to Wanstead, and we had quite a colourful neighbourhood, going to the dogs. Our neighbour knocks on the off chance I might want stuff to come into his possession. Pretty poly nylons, knee-high Italian boots, then an invitation to Walthamstow Stadium. We go in the Cortina. He's scrubbed up in a light blue suit, black shiny shirt, his Maureen in slingbacks, poured into a sparkly dress. She can tell I'm worried about my Richard Shops frock, links her arm through mine. You look great, doll. Our table in the owner's area overlooks the track. I'm sat between Fat Alan, hair slicked back, hairy hands, thick gold signet ring sunk in the pillar of skin, and Big Tell, who's awaiting a disciplinary at the Broadway for driving a disorderly bus. Tell says it was his bad luck. The inspector boarded just as he got the singing going, and the geezer was jealous of his Bee Gees falsetto. At the bar, he asks if we can lend him a monkey and discovers our student grant won't cover it. Derek of the creaky brown bomber jacket, white socks, winkle picker shoes, who holds his cigarette like a dart, hears, pulls out a wodge of notes, insists it's his shout. Later, he sidles up. Look, mate, if you're Boracic, I'll ask Fat Alan to put some driving your way. My other half explains he hasn't got a driving licence. Listen, my son, trust me, if the Roses nick you, that's the least of your worries. And we then, towards the end of our training, we could do something called a student elective, and we could go anywhere that you could afford to get to. And we went to Cork, which was brilliant. Adventures in a Blue Morris Minor, 1972. Our first car, not a split screen like Derek's, was powder blue and rust with squeaky seats and back doors that didn't close. The man said it was a bargain for the money, which wasn't much, but more than your dad could really afford for our wedding present, and just needed some tinkering. We drove it from Bridgend with my mother in the back, clutching the ends of ropes we'd tied round the door handles. Despite one hairy moment when she nodded off and the doors flapped open like wings, we managed to limp back home to Newham, trailed by sooty fumes. Every spare moment Derek helped you take it apart. I got used to seeing his legs sticking out under the chassis while you scoured scrapyards under railway arches in Stepney, searching for parts. You both missed anatomy of the shoulder to fix the dodgy brakes. in time for us to drive to Fishguard and the ferry to Cork for our student elective at St Finbarr's. Our trustee Morris took us to the Ring of Kerry to kiss the Blarney Stone, and to a pub where men in black shirts and black berets burst in with collecting tins and the fiddler stopped playing. It would be our last carefree summer before qualifying. Only Mrs. Murphy, our landlady, felt sure we were able for it. So we then moved to Oxford, where Ted was working all hours in the special care baby unit, and I was trying to cope with new twin babies. Mother's help. Julie arrives with a fag dangling from glossed lips, grinds it out, twisting the heel of her strappy sandal on the step as I open the door, wafting smoke away from my two babies, scooped in my arms. She breezes down the hall, bringing in sunlight, swings my son onto her hip. He reaches out, strokes her smiley face. She takes over, mopping surfaces, jiggling my boy, searching for mugs. She's in a red stripy sundress, and I'm crumpled and dribbled on. My daughter settles with her babble. It's good to tell someone who really listens about the breastfeeding advisor goading me to keep going, although both babies have that big-eyed, starved look and don't sleep. Or the health visitor who advised against planting both bouncy chairs in front of the washing machine, the twins happily watching tumbling soap suds on the grounds it wasn't stimulating. She laughs, tells me about her date last night, a new boyfriend for fun, not for keeps. Before I know it, my hour is up. 2 dirty coffee cups, 1 clean worktop, 2 contented babies, and me, still in my limp Laura Ashley nightie. I watch her disappear down the path, leaving a whiff of smoke and a lipstick kiss on a discarded filter tip. Good old Julie. 5 foot in her slippers. My mum's in hospital, more muddled than usual. I'm a dab hand, a pit stop at Membury, over the Severn Bridge and its Croeso i Gymru to navigate the long corridors of Bridgend Hospital. She looks smaller standing by her bed, bewildered. I search her locker to see what she needs. Visiting time, and someone claps their hands. It's Mum, standing in the middle of the ward, wrapped in a blanket. A few keep chatting until they feel her laser gaze. Welcome to Mynydd Comfig Primary School. She's back. Mrs. Rees planning the next project, her string bag bulging with cereal packets. Toilet roll insides to make Viking helmets, Roman shields. Worrying about Geoffrey, his glasses at a jaunty angle, stuck together with pink elastoplast. Thrilled when he manages to read Janet and John. She sees it's me, my daughter from England. Searches for the handbell to get their attention, her perm squashed flat at the back. The back of you. I must have taken it with my Brownie camera, a black and white snap, the back of you, in a baggy dress, a tangle of unruly curls. I'm following you through the prickly grass path from your farm to the old quarry, out of bounds, across a disused railway line, to watch your brother play dare with the boys. We often smuggle cake from the pantry, wrapped in hankies tucked in our pockets. My mother, staying with your aunt in the big house, had no idea where we were. You always looked out for me, shouted at the boys who called me Queenie, mimicking my Essex twang. Do you remember the plays we put on, dressed up in your aunt's negligees, floaty scarves and beads? I think the line about taking a lover put a stop to it. I overheard my mother whisper, those two, too old for Noddy, too young for Lolita. Years later, I heard you'd run away, left your home and job. Nobody would say what had become of you. I saw you once at your aunt's funeral, elegant in black. I tried to catch your eye, but your face was hidden under a broad-brimmed hat. Going home. Her bus wheezes up the hill past Pisgah Chapel, where her mother played the organ each Sunday. Sooty terraced houses lean together like bad teeth. She sees Trefoil the butcher closing for the day, setting out sluiced trays with a fresh ruff of paper. Elias' funerals with their display of dusty flowers. On the corner outside the co-op, Howard Marks, down from Oxford, smokes roll-ups with bad boys from the comp, turning heads with his long hair. Children spill from the fish place in Maria Street, clutching Friday night bags of scraps and chips, licking greasy fingers slid out from mittens. Once they pass Langford's Dairy, the driver slows to drop her off between stops at the top cross. She remembers teaching him at Marless Infants. She skirts the puddles in the lane to her cottage, unpacks her basket, salty cockles, lava bread from Bridgend Market, treats for her daughter, home from London for the weekend. It's time to heat the bakestone for Welsh cakes before Willie Pentre delivers the fresh eggs and... "Did you have a good snooze, Gwen?" A girl in a plastic apron is kneeling by her chair, rubbing her arm. She keeps her eyes closed. Gwen is not her name. She is Gwyneth Dillis, and they have put her in the wrong clothes. Her daughter will be coming soon to take her home. Bucket list. I wait at the barrier in Paddington. His gait is unmistakable. John Wayne, broad-based, rolling, shooting his cuffs, a Camel cigarette held like a dart between his thumb and index finger. Booted and suited, my cousin Terry spills from the South Wales train. It's only the two of us now. The last time it was Jersey boys, tea at the Ritz and Westminster Abbey. This time, Mamma Mia, Harrods, and he has one last request. I think of the times he appeared outside college unannounced, took me out for a steak up west with all the trimmings, a note tucked in my pocket to keep me going. How he kept an eye on Mum, giving her vegetables from his allotment. The time he stayed with her that long night until the ambulance came. I say, for you, Terry, anything, just name it. How about matching tattoos? Discreet mind. Maybe 2 Welsh dragons? I'll leave you to guess whether that happened or not. And finally in this set, my connections. I was delighted that a version of this has gone into the Cole anthology, which has been published by the Poetry Business to commemorate 40 years since the miners' strike. So that's good. Connections. Empty trains pass without stopping. Smoky dust balls roll with empty cans. A pigeon pecks at a discarded crisp packet. It no longer matters. I arrive in time to see you slip in and out of sleep, hair in a quiff like your photos as a boy. A gouge, blue-black, dug in your cheek from days spent down the pit. I wait in silence, only salvos of footsteps. Nurses peer in. Morphine drowsed, you mouth the air. I lean in close. Terry, it's me, your Cockney cousin. You say, it's only the two of us now. 30 years earlier, I wait outside the prefab, in a row cut through the valley, shadowed by the pit head. A boom shadows the air. Women spill out, standing on doorsteps. My Auntie Gladys twisting her hands in her crossover pinny. A thick silence. The noise of an ambulance getting closer, disappearing. Someone running, breathless, shouting, "Only one casualty!" And you coming home, your face striped with coal dust, pale circles around your eyes. You pick me up, swing me in sooty hands. Thank you. And now for my last two readers. I'm so sorry, I had a note shoved under the door saying I just said Mary and not Mary Mulholland. So apologies, Mary. My last two readers. First, Alexandra Corrin Tachibana's collection, Sing Me Down from the Dark, is in its 3rd issue. She teaches for the poetry business and the writing school. She teaches a lot about Japanese poetry forms. Her poems are widely published, and she's been placed and shortlisted in many competitions, including the Winchester Poetry Prize, the Fish Prize, the Troubadour Prize, and was 3rd in the 2020 Oxford Brooks International Poetry Competition. And last but not least, Roger Boor, poet, biographer, artist and publisher, and all-round Renaissance man. Roger is the founder of Clayhanger Press, is co-editor of the Alchemy Spoon Poetry magazine. In 2019, he won the Poetry London Claw Prize and was highly commended in the AUB Poetry Competition 2021 and commended in the 2022 Winchester Poetry Prize. His collection, Snacking Winterwood, was published again by the excellent VOLE Press. Thank you.
Alexandra, are you there?
Yeah. Hi,
Oh.
everyone.
Hello.
Thanks, Janice, and thanks, Judith, for the lovely introduction. It's so wonderful to be here with you this evening. As Judith said, we were peers on the MA, but Judith's become a really, really good friend. So thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really enjoying the poems this evening. So I'm going to read 2 poems. The first one is a Japanese zui hitsu, which means follow the impulse of the brush. And it's called Life is Movement. Life is movement. O genki desu ka? How are you? Ki. Spirited, vital, vigorous. Energy flowing through the universe. The cribber, the beast and the widowmaker, rises up to 30 feet over Nuki's reef. In Siguentha, with her lover on a balcony, watching crag martins chasing insects. Swooping, swirling, playfully looping in, resting on the Castillo wall, returning every summer like a carnival. Uki Oye, floating world, cherry blossom crossing the archipelago. Her husband's favorite album is Yamasta Tatsuro's Big Wave. Since the 80s, his taste hasn't changed. Light constantly changes, and that alters the atmosphere and the beauty of things. Monet. Watching a storm on Fishstraw Beach. Why can't boys marry their mummies? In a Siguenthan studio, a jeweler threading balls of coral like giant rose hips. Imagine them bobbing on a polo neck. Shimizu Minato Matsuri, a port festival. Taiko drummers in Mawashi, takoyaki octopus balls, shaved flavored ice. An outside person joining the dance. Those who do not move do not notice their chains. Rosa Luxemburg. Radio Taisor, morning drill. Children and teachers in a sun-bleached yard, bending and stretching to archaic piano music, beside a pond with greedy carp. Japanese Exchange and Teaching Programme, 1996. Carp for Boys' Day, running the carp kite along Shirahama Beach. Leaving Narita Airport, Wagyu steak. And her days in empty Spain, fresh as smashed tomatoes on morning bread. I seek to recognize myself through different worlds, through things that only poems hadn't forgotten. Julio Cortázar, translated by Matthew Stewart.
Thanks, Judith, for asking me to read. A brilliant evening so far. It's gone really well. Really enjoying it. So sometimes it's quite difficult to write poetry. This one's called Midnight. Meredith, Swinburne, and Dante Rossetti sit by my bed, loudly arguing again. Strange bedfellows, even at the best of times. But tonight, when sleep seems very far away, and yet more windmills beckon to be tilted, I need a quieter and less poetic crowd around me. Perhaps a classical composer who only scratches ink on paper, leaving someone else to make his music. A painter would be ideal, oiling images out of cotton canvas ready to be viewed in the cathedral silence of a gallery. Words are what I do and do not want. I need to empty them out onto paper so that I can sleep out of reach of the drip of sounds which wrap around my tongue and wrestle it into voice. I am exhausted, excluded, escorted, deported, depleted, unseated, defeated, invisible behind this uncut overgrowth of half-forgotten words and unborn poetry. And sometimes it's very easy to write poetry because all you've got to do is to listen to other people's conversations and write the words down. This is called At the Nail Bar, and I wasn't having my nails done. It was my wife getting her hair done. Trish, who does the nails and has a party booked in Ibiza for her 50th, finishes her Chico's chili chicken burger and wipes her warm, lubricious fingers on her body-shaping fishnet tights from M&S before she reaches for her files to reshape Donna from a normal square to oval, passing through a slow transition of a nice strong squoval, which will be ideal for her wedding, at which she plans to tap dance down the aisle, against the wishes of her friends who feel her partner, somewhat older than herself, might not appreciate this deviation from the normal slow and rather classic stride of brides of former days supported on their father's arms. And you can also people watch, so just sit and watch people and invent stories about them. This is to mark my recent move to the Isle of Man, so it's about Laxey Beach, which is a beautiful beach about 10 minutes drive away. It's called Everyone Has Secrets and has a subtitle, Stieg Larsson rewrites Jackie Collins. A lady with a nervous cough, straw hat and walking stick sits cross-legged down on Laxey Beach, reading surreptitiously a well-thumbed copy of a chick-lit Mills and Boon. You may have thought that in her dreams she sees herself begin to swoon as queues of tight, rich gentlemen wait on the promenade to take her off to somewhere out of reach of all the mundane troubles and concerns that tie her down to what the world would call reality. But in her dreams she has tattoos, an inch-long wasp inked on her neck, a dragon on her shoulder blade, Beretta pistol loaded in her bag. So if those tight, rich gentlemen should take just one step closer, she has 6 shots to make her point, and 6 more in the magazine, in case they didn't hear her say, "Why don't you try and make my day?" And the last one is from the excellent VOLE anthology, which Janice very kindly included one of my poems in, and it's called The Weather for Today. I watch you walk along the narrow path and wonder if you wore that skirt to match the colour of day, or if the day has taken on the colour of my mood. This afternoon of scarlet silk flounces yellow polka dots of sun across the park, with little care for how the coming week may fare or whether it will come at all. This is a day for passionate affairs, for hotel rooms with bed-strewn lingerie, discarded morals littering the floor, and all the flesh 2 lovers could desire. This is an ice cream day of sun and sand, of lying on the beach with nothing on, then skinny dipping in a freezing sea, and never having felt this much alive. This is a day that needs to take a risk, a day that's tired of its grounded life, and wants to move much closer to the edge and take an eyes-closed step into the air. This is the day I call to you across the park, and say how much I love today, with all its scarlet silk and yellow polka dots. This is the day we meet and fall in love. Thank you.
Thank you. That was lovely. Thank you very much, Roger, and Alex as well. Very, very, very lovely. Such a variety of poems tonight. really enjoying it. And we're going to hear once more from Judith. And yes, Judith.
Were they wonderful? Thanks to my wonderful readers and
Fantastic.
fellow poets and for all their help along the way. And last but not least, my first reader and patient husband, Ted, and my wonderful family to who this collection is dedicated. And finally, where it all began, November. Imagine it's school birthday, and my dad is at the front in a posh suit, his black unruly curls brill-creamed smooth. Imagine him talking to us about the children at his school in the East End who go hungry, whose shoes don't fit. Imagine his speech how he, a miner's son, is a candidate for Parliament. He tells us there's nothing we can't do. Imagine that smoky bonfire night, and he's on his way home with a box of Brock's fireworks and a pack of sparklers for me. Imagine the bonfire set, the guy on a wigwam of sticks, dressed in Dad's old battered hat and gardening clothes. Imagine my mother cooking sausages in the kitchen, singing along to the radio. She's not worried, he's late. Imagine the silent plaque clinging to the wall of an artery in his heart doesn't rupture as he rounds the corner to home. Imagine the man occluding the light at the front door is my father, not the policeman bringing us the news. Thank you for listening.
Oh, Judith, that last one makes me cry. Tremendous poem, thank you. And it brings us to the end of this evening's readings. As I said, this has been a lovely launch. I've so much enjoyed listening to everybody. All of you, thank you very much for coming and sharing such wonderful poems with us all. And Judith, thank you for bringing your book to us. Don't forget, everybody, if you haven't already bought a copy, go to Judith first. She will have lots of books to sell to you or to give to you. And if she runs out, we have some as well. So thank you very much, all of you.